Hey there! Gonna open this up bigger. I hope you guys can see me. Okay, awesome. I see some comments here. So it looks like you guys will be able to join me soon. Let me know if you're here and say hi. Tell us where you're joining in from the world, and then I know who I'm talking to. So I just want to welcome you here. Welcome to the Wild Roots Learning Tribe. Welcome to our session tonight. I'm so looking forward to this solstice celebration. And I am really feeling the need right now in the world to just hold some space for hope and for healing. And so I've got, oh, I'm on the other side. I've got my candles lit. I'm just delighted to be here with you. And I want to thank you for joining me and taking time out of whatever part of your day this is. It's my end of my day. But I know some of you are just getting started there. So thank you for joining me. And I really hope you take away some knowledge from this. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dev Rivers, and I am the owner of Invincible Gardens, and we provide permaculture consultations and garden coaching to intentional kitchen gardeners. And this we do with personalized support and guidance so that they feel inspired and empowered to grow and live abundantly wherever they are in the world. And whatever your space looks like right now, I know that in this group, even we have a number of people with large properties, and we have a number of people that are just putting a few seeds in some containers. And I just want you to know that wherever you are on your gardening journey, you are welcome here, and we're very happy to have you with us. So, before we dive into this session, though, I do want to mention one thing that is really exciting that's coming up in January. And I want to let you know about this because it really ties into the mission that we were talking about people feeling inspired and empowered to grow where they are. Um, so this class in January is going to be a free 5-day masterclass. It's going to be happening here in the group live. So you'll be able to chat questions with me, and it's really going to be a workshop style masterclass. And that's called Designing Kitchen Garden Abundance. So what this class is going to be all about is learning how to set up a vision and goals for your garden, right? Because we can't get where we're going if we don't know what that looks like, right? And then as well as setting up those visions and goals, we're also going to use some permaculture design tools to actually get you a map layout of your current growing space. And then we're going to go ahead even beyond that, and we're going to plan out a growing plan for these upcoming seasons, right? Really for the whole year of 2021. And we're going to make this plan climate specific for you and also growing space specific. So I really, really hope that you will join me there. I want to make 2021 the year that we make gardens happen. And the way that we can do that is by reaching out to those that we know need these resources and need some help right now. So that's why I'm providing this free masterclass, and I really hope that you'll join me in inviting friends. You can invite them to this group, and you can also share the link because you do need to register for this masterclass. So the way that you register is very simple. You go to pages.invinciblegardens.com pages.invinciblegardens.com. And there's a simple form there. You just enter your name and your email address, and then you're all set, okay? And then you're registered. So you can either share that website with those friends that you know might be interested, or you can share this Wild Roots Learning Tribe group. And like I said, everything will be happening here in the Tribe Live, so I'm looking forward to meeting you here for that. And if you need any help, you can always send me a private message, and I I will be happy to make sure that you get registered. Because what is going to be great about that is that right now, I'm creating a workbook that's going to go with these sessions. So, like I said, we're going to workshop through these things. And I just know that the more people that are there at this masterclass, the more gardens we're going to have successful, happy gardeners next summer. So that's what I'm aiming for. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Milena. Hi, Jamie and Adrian. I love that you guys are on here with me. Thank you for saying hi. Um, so wonderful. Okay, so I think that's kind of more or less the housekeeping things. And I'm really just so excited to be here with you right now in this space because I find this to be such a cool topic for my personality. It's really this wonderful blend of witchiness and kind of folklore with the science and those universal laws that are governing how things work, like gravity and physics. Um, and so I just find it really fun to kind of play around with this and experiment with what results we can get in our garden using these methods. Um, and it can feel a little overwhelming at first. So I really just, before we start, want to encourage you not to get bogged down overthinking it or over planning it, right? Just kind of try to be open to some of these ideas and how you can begin to experiment with this in your own garden, okay? So we're going to be talking through a couple of things. Basically, there are I mean, there's more than two, but I'm going to talk about a couple of methods. So one of them is known as the old-timey method. It's also known as the folklore method, and this is the method of gardening by the moon that you would find in a typical farmer's almanac. Okay, so this is maybe considered more of a Western philosophy regarding the moon cycle planting. And then the other method we're going to talk about is the biodynamic method. And this is also really interesting because this is based on the teachings of Rudolf Steiner. And so he was the founder of the anthroposophical movement. And that movement basically is founded on the principles that we're all related, right? Everything is connected. And so this sees a correlation between science and nature and the universal laws, as well as the spiritual connections. So because of all of these things being connected, Rudolf Steiner was also the person who used these ideas to develop and found the Waldorf education system. So we know it here in Switzerland as the Steiner Schule. In the US, they know it as Waldorf schools. But basically, this biodynamic method comes out of his principles of the anthroposophical movement. And then what's really fun is there was a woman who worked under him named Maria Thun. And Maria Thun really utilized this biodynamic method in her gardens. And she actually went ahead and participated in some scientific studies during the 1950s, and she documented everything. So it's really great because it's kind of this, connection to the spiritual world and these sort of ethereal concepts. But she really did practically test these things in a scientific garden. And what's interesting about all of these methods is that even when these things are tested in laboratories and they feel like, oh, they don't have the same light from the moon or the plant isn't outside, they still have been able to track the gravitational changes on those plants, even in a laboratory setting. So I just find it really cool. And just so that you can think about, how these ideas are backed by science, I want to talk briefly about what is happening as the moon cycles around the Earth, right? The moon goes around about once every 27 to 29 days. So we usually round it out at about 28 days. But as the Earth is orbiting, I'm sorry, as the moon is orbiting around the Earth, it's not actually going in a circle. It's making an elliptical orbit, right? Like an oval, if we were to see that in a two-dimensional sense. And so what is happening is when the moon is at the full moon position or the new moon position, the gravitational pull from the moon on the earth is different, right? And this is the belief of why this affects our gardens, because we already know that the moon is responsible for our tides, right? And we see this happening with low and high tide. I'm sure there's going to be some fishermen from Alaska watching this one. So we've all been aware of those tides and how that is affected by the moon. But what is amazing is that the Earth's crust, the solid Earth, is also affected by the moon. They say it's about 100 times smaller, the effect that it has. But it does actually move the Earth's crust that is closest to the moon by about even a few centimeters. And when you think of your garden shifting like that, it does seem like a lot. Um, so basically, with these moon phases, this is where the two methods, the folklore method and the biodynamic method, pretty much agree, right? Um, so what we want to talk about is what is happening in each of those phases. Um, so, like I said, the moon is orbiting counterclockwise. So, it can be a little confusing when you start to get into looking at some of these diagrams and things about gardening with the moon because they're all going counterclockwise. And as well, the pictures of how you envision the moon in the different cycles, right? Which part of the moon is lit up? What part can we see? When it's in which particular phase. Okay, so I'm going to basically break it down for you into 4 phases. Okay, and we are going to talk about what you would be doing in the garden in each one of those phases. And like I said, this is where the folklore method and the biodynamic method are pretty much aligned. Whoopsie. Okay. Okay, so let's start with the new moon. Okay, so the new moon is when the moon's shadow side is facing us. So we generally don't see any moon in the sky. The sky is completely dark. But if we progress, right, the moon, and as we see it in the sky, starts to get lighter from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, right? And as the moon is gaining this light, as we're seeing more of the lit up face of the moon, this is a waxing moon. So the moon is waxing from the whole time. It goes from the new moon where it's dark, it gets to a half moon, which is called the second quarter moon. And then it becomes completely full and bright in the sky where we see it as a full moon, as a full circle. Okay. And then as it loses that light, as it starts to rotate away from us, the full moon then becomes dark from the right-hand side. And so only the left-hand side, as we see it in the sky, is lit up. And this is a waning moon. So from the time that the moon is full until it goes back to being completely dark, in that time when it's losing light, it's a waning moon. Okay. So generally, if you want to get really simplified, the most agreed on thing that you can implement in your garden is that when the moon is waxing, when it is gaining in light, this is the time to be planting crops that grow above ground. And the reason for that is that in the new moon, the gravitational pull is stronger on the earth because it's lined up with the sun as well. So both the moon's energy and the sun's energy are creating that gravitational pull. And so it's stronger there. And this brings water up from the soil. And it brings it up so the plants can access it. And basically, it's just the time when you want to focus on seeds germinating, because that extra moisture in the soil actually helps them burst their seed coats and go ahead and sprout. So you generally get better germination if you plant in this cycle, working with the soil's moisture from the moon. Um, and then yeah, so the seed coat is helped by bursting. That lunar gravity is helping by adding moisture to the soil. And the other thing that is happening is the amount of light is increasing, right? So from the new moon when it's dark to the full moon when we see a bright ball in the sky, that whole time, each night we're getting more moonlight. And so this is seen as being really good for the leaf growth of the plant. So in that time, it's kind of, from the new moon, it's balanced growth up to more light, and then more focus on the leaf growth with having that extra light towards the full moon. And then with the waning moon, this is when you want to focus on plants that grow below ground. So this is when you want to plant your root crops. Um, and the gravitational pull with the full moon is also strong, right? So the weaker gravitational pull from that elliptical orbit I was talking about, the weak points are the half moons, right? The second quarter moon and what's called the fourth quarter moon. Like the new moon being the first quarter and the full moon being the third, right? So we divide it into four parts. But basically, with the new moon and the full moon, the difference is the light. So both of those times are good for planting seeds, but it's about what seeds you want to plant then, right? So with the new moon, you want to use that increased gravitational pull and the increasing light and plant those things that are leafy, brassicas, lettuces, cilantro, things like that. And then you want to, after the full moon, in the waning moon is when you want to plant the root crops like the carrots and radishes and potatoes and things like that. Okay, and then you can go ahead and break it down a little bit more if you want to get really specific into the quarters, right? In the second quarter, so that you've got 2 weeks between a new moon and a full moon. So you've got like 1 week of the new moon phase, and then in the second quarter phase, when the moon's about halfway full, this is particularly good for the leaf growth, right? Because the energy is coming up from the water, but with more light, the plant is more focused on the growth in the leaves. So that's a particularly good time to plant things that are above ground, but have fruit, right? Or also have like seeds that you might be collecting. So this might be things like tomatoes and peppers and beans and things like that. And then we already talked about the root crops starting in the full moon. And then with the fourth quarter moon, you're losing that light, as well as you're having a decrease in the gravitational pulse. But the energy is pulling down into the earth rather than coming up. So this is a great time both for the root crops and also to kind of rest in your garden. Or to do things like pruning you want to do on a waning moon, cutting trees, things like that. In fact, you can mow your yard. They recommend mowing in that fourth quarter moon if you don't want to have a lot of growth coming back, right? Because everything's kind of focused down in the roots. So that's the time to mow your yard if you supposedly want it to be a little more manageable. Okay, so how are we doing? I see people are still with me. Any questions at this point, you guys? Just pop them in the chat if you've got anything for me. Yeah, Melina, she does have to be in the group. If she joins, let me know and I'll just tag her and let her in real quick. Um, but yeah, that is a change for this month because I've been doing a lot of like personal videos and my daughter's in some things. And so I just decided that I wanted to keep this a little more private for what I was sharing with everybody. Um, and so transplanting is another great thing. So transplanting is considered best to be done at a full moon. So basically, if you go ahead and do your transplants. This also can be done or like applied to planting out seedlings if you have starts going. You do this at the full moon because then the energy is going immediately into the roots, and so it is supposed to prevent the most or the least amount of shock to the plant itself. And then you get a direct connection with the roots growing immediately in that waning moon. So starting anytime with the full moon and then into the waning moon, kind of seen to be better because of the moisture levels at the full moon to do the transplant right around the full moon. But again, transplants can be done kind of any time in that waning time when you've got that added benefit of the root energy. So I hope that makes sense. Um, okay. Any other questions that are coming up for you guys? Um, ooh, cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Jamie. Thank you. Okay. So I feel ready to move on to the next category, right? We were saying that there's the moon phase, which we've been talking about, and then the latter part is the moon sign. And this is the one that where the methods don't line up. There's a little bit of divergence in the beliefs um, about the methods. Um, but that being said, like I was saying from the science of it, the moon phases is really what everybody agrees on, right? So you can at least start implementing this, and then you can see if you have fun playing with it and you're enjoying it, go ahead and take it to this level and look at the signs. But this is a little bit more complicated, so just bear with me and do let me know if anything doesn't make sense to you, and I'm happy to go over it again. Okay, so basically, when we think of the signs, these are related to the zodiac signs. So there's two things to kind of note here. One is the natural elements that the signs are attached to. So you have fire signs and air signs and earth signs and water signs, right? And each of these signs is kind of assigned to a part of the plant that they seem to have the most effect on. So, for instance, fire is responsible for fruit and seed, okay? And air is responsible for flowers. And then earth, makes sense, is responsible for roots. And water is correlated with leaf growth. Okay, so when you start to think about what am I planting, what goes with what, this is kind of the breakdown. So those four signs are basically broken into fertile and barren. Okay, so the barren signs are not considered good for planting. They're actually considered good for destroying things or killing things. So this is the time that you want to be doing your weeding because you have all of this energy on your side with the fire signs being destructive. They are supposed to be the best signs in which to do the weeding. And the fire signs are Aries and Leo and Sagittarius. And so I'll just list those for you guys, but I'm going to give you some tips too about how you can look up a calendar online so you're not having to do all this planning yourself. Um, and then, and like I was saying, kind of with the waning moon and that fourth quarter moon with mowing or pruning and stuff, um, when you are in a barren sign and you're cutting something back, this wants to be something that you don't want to come back, right? Because sometimes we prune things to get new growth, but these are things that we want to cut when we don't want them to return. So things like, weed trees that maybe have popped up, or like I said, mowing your yard. This would be the time to do it in these barren signs. And the air signs, which are also considered barren, not quite as destructive as those fire signs, um, but still um, but still not considered very good for planting, are Gemini and Libra and Aquarius. So one note that I will give you about Libra, it's so funny because it's my sign. But it's like an exception. There's something about Libra that is so associated with beauty and the love of beauty that in kind of all of these methods, um, it is seen as the time to plant flowers. So if you can note when Libra is, this is the time to seed flowers or, enjoy adding those into your garden. Um, okay, so those are the barren signs, fire and air. So good times for weeding, good times for getting rid of trees you don't want to come back, and a good time to mow your yard. And as well as Libra being a fun exception to get to plant your flowers. Um, oh, and I should mention, so with these signs, because the moon is turning on its axis also once in that 28-day period, as well as rotating around the Earth, it's in these signs about 2.5 days for each of the signs in a given month. Um, so that just helps you to know like what kind of time frame we're talking about, right? So let's talk about the fertile signs because that's what's really fun to use is to get things really going in our garden, even though it can be fun to get rid of stuff too. Um, but the most fertile signs are the water signs, and they are considered to be the most fertile of all of them. Um, and they each sign is correlated to a part of both, well, actually part of the body, but part of the plants as well. And so with this fertility, there are specific plants that they recommend planting based on those signs specifically. So Scorpio, one of the water signs, is responsible for fruit. So that would be the time when the moon is in Scorpio to plant out your fruiting plants. And then Cancer is considered the most fertile of all. So you can go ahead and just plant whatever you want during Cancer. And then Pisces is associated with roots. So when the moon is in the Pisces sign, then that would be a great time to plant your root crops. Um, and then the earth signs are still considered fertile, but not as fertile as the water signs. Um, but what is interesting about the earth signs is they are seen as a really good time to plant storage crops because it's things that you don't want to be too watery, you plant in this earth time. Um, so those signs are Taurus and Capricorn. And then actually, poor Virgo. Um, for whatever reason, Virgo is not considered very good for planting at all. I don't know why that is, but all of the sources I looked at basically just don't recommend this for much of anything. So, but I do want to say, because, I'm sure some of you are sitting there watching and thinking, oh my gosh, like it rains, I need to go on vacation, I have a family to take care of, I have a job. how, like, I'm barely getting my garden done anyway, Deb. Like, how am I now going to layer on, right, this schedule of, these days and getting these seeds in the ground at the right time? So I do want to offer you a little bit of help in how to kind of wrap your head around this and how, if you can actually um, kind of be open to it and just give yourself a little bit of planning, you will actually find that it can help you a lot because if you only have 20 minutes to jump out in your garden, but oh man, the moon is waxing. I've got to get my broccoli seeds in today. It just gives you a task to kind of stay on top of. So I will tell you how I was taught to develop my moon planting calendar. So basically, the very first thing you do is you get like a monthly calendar. And I don't really recommend doing this more than a month out. I mean, you certainly could if you are on top of it that much. I admire you. I usually go with like a month or so at a time, and then it also allows me to stay flexible about what's happening currently in my garden versus being, attached to this planting plan that I made 6 months ago, right? So basically, what I would say really is the most important thing is that you are gardening and that you keep gardening and that you put seeds in the ground. So don't let this stop you from actually gardening because nothing will happen if you don't get your seeds in the ground because you're paralyzed by trying to follow, to a T this moon cycle, right? So don't let it be like that. Just when you start, just experiment, right? And what I would really encourage you to do is write down when you planted stuff. Even if you don't know what the moon cycle was or something, you could always go back and look at that later. So I'm always encouraging you to have a garden journal and write down when you plant stuff because then you can have a look at the results that you get and see how you're doing based on what comes up, right? Um, okay, so when you are wanting to do this and you're wanting to set up, say, a month at a time, you just start with the calendar and you just look at the time, like 2 weeks and 2 weeks. Okay, when is the time from the new moon until the full moon? And this is the waxing time, and this is when you're going to be planting your above ground crops. And then you're going to look at the waning time, and then you're going to be planting your root crops, right? And I would say yes to putting transplanting maybe somewhere in there a day or two around the full moon. Um, and then what you can do is I believe it's called mooncalendar.astroseek.com. I will make sure that in the comments later I put a link up to this because this takes the guesswork out of it for you. If you go onto that website, there is a lunar calendar tab, and then under that there is like a gardening lunar calendar. And so it will tell you what sign the moon is in by the day, right? So you can really go on this just month by month and you can see, okay, today the moon, oh, I'm like forgetting all my signs. Okay, so today the moon is in Scorpio. I'm going to plant out some tomatoes, right? Or, oh, okay, the moon is in Pisces. This is a really good time for root crops. I'm going to go for my carrots or my parsnips. And so then basically, if you just take a little bit of time at the beginning of the month, you start with that waxing and waning, and then individually you can just on individual days, just write out what crops you want to put that go with those signs, right? And like I said, this is an experiment. Don't get hung up on it. Just have fun with it and see where it takes you, and see if you notice the things that are changing in your garden. Because I do know a number of people that have been, I mean, this method has been used for thousands of years, right? In a lot of native cultures as well. And so this is really a power that we can tap into. And so I encourage you to just have fun and see how you can begin to add this into your gardening. Um, and the last thing, I don't think I mentioned it, and I want to bring this up as far as the signs, because when we're using the zodiac, there are actually two zodiacs that are used. So one of them is called the sidereal zodiac. And this is when we look up at the night sky and the section of sky that we see right now, where the moon is in the sign, that's the sidereal zodiac. Um, and the other, oh, I'm sorry, and this one is what is used for the biodynamic method. And it's also used in the Vedic methodology. So, like Ayurveda and growing plants for aligning chakras and doshas and things like that. Um, and then the other zodiac that is used is the tropical zodiac. And this one is more typical for Western use. This is what would be used in like a farmer's almanac. And the tropical zodiac relates to where the planets were in the sky at the time that all of this was being developed, right? So our planets are actually, they're moving around, and even the moon itself, it is increasing in the distance from the Earth. So the gravity is actually decreasing, and the effect is getting smaller. We're having smaller tides now than we used to. So the note with those two zodiacs is just having a look at if you do get down to, okay, I don't feel like that biodynamic method works for me. I maybe want to simplify it a little. I'm going to use the folklore method. Then this would probably be a tropical zodiac you're looking at. And the biodynamic method is the sidereal zodiac. And when you go on that website that I will share in the comments, there is also a link to change the zodiac that you're working with. And you will see it. It will be sidereal. And then I think they actually have in parentheses Maria Thune's name, because she is really associated, she is the founder of this biodynamic method of planting. And it's really interesting for us here in Europe because we not only get organic vegetables, but we get vegetables that are labeled as Demeter. And what this means is those vegetables are not only organic, but they have been grown, like certified, grown in the biodynamic method. So that means that these farmers, these growers, they were all doing this planning. Those carrot seeds went in when it was a root sign, when it was an earth sign. The lettuces went in when it was a water sign. Yeah, so it's really fun to see how this is even used in commercial agriculture, this biodynamic method. Um, so I think, let's see. Do you guys have any questions about how to kind of get started on putting this into a calendar or how you can begin to use this? Just let me know. I'm gonna pop up here really quick and see if anybody else is trying to join us. Looks like not for now. Okay. Well, you guys, I think that's all I have to share for right now. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know what you experiment with and what you have fun with. And if there's anything else you feel like isn't clear for you, or as you get going with stuff, comes up with questions, just let me know, and I'm happy to answer those in a chat or here in the group. But really great that you're here with me. Thank you so much. I wish you all a really happy solstice tomorrow. We are going to be lighting, I keep doing the wrong side. We're going to be lighting the Christmas tree tomorrow and sending out that love and light. So I hope you feel it. I hope you have a great solstice. The light is returning. It's going to be a new year. I'm so looking forward to being with you in January for the masterclass. Thank you for joining me tonight. And yeah, let me know whatever else I can help you with. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, you guys.